This episode of Conversation was sponsored by the Haitian Diaspora Federation. Their mission is to inspire and empower people of Haitian heritage to improve their and Haiti's socio-economic conditions. This episode was also sponsored by DECO International Security Corporation. Their mission is to enhance your success by providing the highest standard in security services. A broken system is like a broken heart. With hope that America is the country of immigrants, many arrived at its borders, but were soon turned away. A cruel rejection from a lover, and one that has been a perpetual love interest. What does that reproach signify to desperate people escaping what appears to be like a failed state? For many, the answers do not matter, because hope satisfies the arduous journey to make it to America's gate and in front of Miss Liberty. What drives people to the United States is the idea that some friend, some family member, or a sponsor are behind those gates or beyond the Del Rio Bridge. My parents were immigrants, and so were many of your parents and even yourself. It has been difficult for immigrants for nearly a decade. Donald Trump ran his bid for the presidency on fear of immigrant Mexicans, Muslim majority countries, and other non-European nationals. The environment was toxic and still is. Being an immigrant became a dirty word. However, people still cling to the idea that America is still a country of immigrants, perhaps for old immigrants and not new ones. Last week, I was invited to travel to Texas with Christine Olivo, who is running for Congress in 2022. We experienced firsthand how broken the U.S. immigration system is. Our subject today: how broken is the U.S. immigration system? Our guest today, congressional candidate Christine Olivo. Welcome, Christine. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you so much, Naomi, for having me.
It is an honor for us to have you and indeed to share with all of our viewers what we experienced during our trip to Del Rio, Texas.
Yeah.
My name is Christine Olivo. This past Friday, I went to Texas, went to the border in hopes of finding my cousin to bring her back and be her sponsor.
Any other information that we know? How many people are here in the States? Did they keep? How many people did they send back to Mexico? Nobody knows. Nobody knows anything about numbers. Apparently not.
What I saw on my trip this weekend was horrifying. And what I would have never known had I not taken the trip to go for myself.
My cousin, we finally were able to talk to her, right? She said it was a 3-part trip. They had to walk to a certain point. Then at a certain point, they get on a bus. Then after the bus, they go through the river. You mean to tell me they go through all of that? All of that. And all we have to offer them is a trip back to a country that they haven't been to in over 4 or 5 years.
Stop deportations! Save the Haitians! Stop deportation! Stop a flight! Do what's right! Stop a flight! Do what's right!
We are not just just talking about a Haitian migrant issue. This is a Black migrant issue. We have racist immigration policies in the United States of America, and they must be addressed.
What do we want? Due process. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Due process. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Due process. When do we want it? Now. And if we don't get it, if we don't get it, shut it down. If we don't get it, shut it down.
That the migrants have their telephones taken away from them. Their lifeline to their family is now gone. To hear that mothers miscarried their children under that bridge, and instead of receiving American medical aid, they were sent to Mexico.
They walked, they bust, they went through the swamp to get to the promised land, and we sent them back. So if we can all take a moment of silence, raise your signs in the air, and show solidarity for the migrants.
Why did you invite a show like Conversations to Texas with you?
I invited you to join me in this journey to first help find my cousin and to document the experience of what it's like to be a family member searching for someone at the border in the midst of chaos. And my second reason, I believe that the community had a right to see what really happens when we go down to the border, not what you see on TV, but what's really happening on the ground. And the last reason, policy. I wanted to document the process so that we can figure out how to fix that process through policy.
Christine, the morning of our trip, we heard that overnight, people under the bridge were removed. What did you make of that?
I was terrified. How do you make thousands of Black migrants disappear overnight? They were all there. And within hours, they were gone.
Nobody wants to call the Biden administration out. Everybody wants to hold true to, the Democratic Party. I'm running in the Democratic Party, and I'm telling you right now, I think that every Haitian person, every Black person should leave the Democratic Party for this alone. Why? The Biden administration was able to make 14,000 Black people vanish in the middle of the night, like that, as if we didn't exist. You know why? Because he thinks no one's gonna say anything. They're still gonna vote for me. No one's gonna challenge this. Do you think that the Biden administration can make 14,000 Cubans vanish like that? And there not be an uproar in this country? And it's not always about putting the Cubans against the Haitians, but in our district, we see what America can do for one group. We're only asking for equal treatment. That is it. We're not saying that they shouldn't get that. We're saying that we should get that too.
And what frustrated me is that did they think that no one was gonna ask questions? That we were just going to accept that everyone's just gone without knowing where's a database that shows who went to which facility, who stayed in which country, who's being deported, who actually got to get sponsored. That's a problem.
That's a huge problem, and a problem that we need to tackle head on. Specifically, how can we get the administration to show more transparency on who left, who were under the bridge, where they went, and from that location, where did they end up?
Number one, raising our voices. That has to be the priority, and we can't let it die down. Too often, many movements begin, but they don't sustain the test of time, right? We need to fight and scream and shout every single day. And number two, I want to thank Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. We need representatives like that. She was at the border. She wanted to see under the bridge. She wanted to know, how did they decide who stayed, who left? Where did they put everyone? Where is the database showing the names with their birthdays and just an organized system? We need representatives that are going to fight for answers.
Let's talk about the Congresswoman from Texas, Sheila Lee. I understand that while we were there, she was able to actually give you some specifics around individuals who had similar names like your cousin, but it was not.
So they were trying to figure out, she took a liking to me, our group, and obviously our story. And she took a moment and said, "What is your cousin's name?" She actually listened and cared. I gave it to her and she went and she searched. They found someone with a similar name. They actually haven't gotten back to me to let me know if it is in fact her or not. We don't know yet. This is a process. But what I do know is that the cell phones of the migrants were taken away. It's hard to reach our family members. So if we can't reach them, and if the only ones that can actually gain access to the border patrol or to the border or to anything that's going on are federal elected officials, they're our only voice.
Christine, what were your main takeaways from this trip, and how should we move forward as a community?
My main takeaways, number one, the body of Christ. How the body of Christ moved in Houston. There is a group called NACC. It is the National Association of, I think it's Christian churches. And they got together. They've been doing this for months under the help of Representative Lee. And there was this huge facility. They housed the migrants, fed them, gave them COVID tests. There were separate areas for the COVID. Well, I mean, you were there. I'm talking to you like you didn't join me on this trip, right? We saw firsthand, and they didn't take not one penny of government money.
No.
Not one penny of government money. They did it through the body of Christ. They felt that it was their duty, and it was a group of churches and pastors. And the first thing I thought of, where is the body of Christ?
Where is the body of Christ?
This is the moment for all of these mega churches or even small churches to join together right here in South Florida. It doesn't have to be in Houston. Where is the body of Christ right here in South Florida?
Christine, one of the things that I loved from this particular pastor, aside from the fact that he did not take any federal funds, was that he treated the people with respect.
Oh my gosh,
and with
yes.
dignity.
Yes.
They had specific sections where they ate. There were specific sections where they slept.
They were getting haircuts. The barber was there. There were people braiding hair. I mean, it was beautiful. And then they had cooks bring Haitian food so that everybody could feel at home.
Yes. He brought a sense of dignity and humane approach to what seemingly has been an inhumane approach to migrants coming across the southern border. And so I think that that was something that touched me, and I know that it touched you. And yes, we are looking for the pastors.
Yes.
We're looking for the shepherds.
Yeah.
We're looking for those that have been called out by God to fight for those that cannot fight for themselves.
100%.
To seek out solutions for those that are seeking refuge. Yeah. And if, as the body of Christ, if we do not do it, then who should do it?
Exactly.
Who should do it?
Why should the government do it? Why are we looking for it? No, we can do it with our own two hands.
Absolutely.
Because we operate on a different power.
Don't we?
Yes.
Don't we?
Yes. And one thing that that the pastor said, and he doesn't want any acknowledgement, so I'm not even gonna put his name out there, but one thing that the pastor said was, this is the fish and loaf movement. Yes. We may think that we don't have enough, but we come together and all of a sudden, more food gets produced. You have more fish, more loaves of bread, and it just spreads.
There's a multiplication.
Yes.
And specifically for this pastor, he was able to assist 1,800.
And counting. Because remember, there was another bus coming in before we left.
Yes.
They probably surpassed 2,000 migrants. And they sent them off with clothes. Yes. With toiletries. I mean, they got their tickets to fly to their family. And these are things that was a big takeaway for me. How beautiful it is when the body of Christ comes together, and how we've gotten so far from that. I feel like we need a wake-up call. We need a wake-up call. And my other takeaway, we spoke with an attorney at the border, and what we learned about what happens to the migrants.
To Black migrants.
How their bail is 3 times higher automatically. How the Haitian translators, I don't want to say set them up for failure, but they completely twist their words.
Yes. And you know what was heartbreaking? That the majority of us, right? You may have not been the one to take a road to come here to America.
Yeah.
Your generation may be the first Haitian American generation, but our parents, our grandparents, they took a road too.
Yeah.
So how dare you be in that position to translate someone's experience and not do it with care.
Yes.
And not do it with respect. And not see it as a moment for you to actually give back to your own community.
But remember, we weren't sure if the Haitian translators were actually Haitian. There is that possibility that they are getting translators that are not of Haitian descent, but that know how to speak Creole and speak English. And so they're translating it for them. We don't know that.
So how do we deal with that? Because you're right, the lawyer, after speaking to the lawyer, we actually said, but what if? And the what ifs, there are too many. There are too many for people that are taking a dangerous road and are going through days and months on feet to get there. There are too many what ifs. How do we close that gap?
Policy. We need to enact policy that protects Black migrants specifically. The discrimination, the racism, the inhumane treatments. We need protections for our migrants, but also specifically Black migrants. How is it that they are being set up? How is it that their phones are being taken away from them? How is it that
they're being treated as criminals?
They're not even given a fair chance. Due process. It's something simple. Basics.
Very basics. Let's talk about the plight of Haitians who left Haiti after the 7.0 earthquake in 2010, which affected 3 million and leaving 200,000 dead. As of 2016, Brazil was home to some 50,000 of them. And according to the National Statistics Institute, over 185,000 made Chile their home as of 2019. Even after settling in South America, these migrants are still looking for a better life. And they're looking to America. This summer, we know that thousands of families from those 2 countries and others decided that they would take this journey to the U.S. by bus and then literally on foot. Some traveling about 11 countries. And then we all have heard about the Darien Gap, a 66-mile roadless stretch of jungle, mountains, and rivers between Colombia and Panama. Some say the Darien Gap is where hell and hope collide for U.S.-bound migrants. They travel some 2 months, 3, and even 4 months. What are your thoughts there? Does the benefit outweigh the risk?
First off, I want to say that my cousin was in Chile for the past 4 years. I think about the journey. I think about what she had to endure, but also what they all had to endure. We saw little children there, women that were pregnant, women that gave birth. And I think of my grandmother who came to America pregnant with my uncle, escaping a very violent relationship. I think about that journey. I think about how painful it must have been to go through that. But then I also think about me. I was born here. Because of my grandmother's sacrifice, because of my grandmother's risk, I am able to have opportunities that I would have never had otherwise. I think of my children. Those migrants are not thinking about themselves when they're taking that trip. They're thinking about their children and their children's children. This is a fight for the next generation. This is not a fight for this generation. They're making a sacrifice so that the suffering stops with them.
Se Brésil nous sorti et nous connaît qu'il y a environ 15 000 personnes qui étaient en bas pour moi. Mais c'est la première fois ça fait que ou bien tout le monde qui réunit ensemble. Qui sortait qu'a dit qui j'en fait que nous toutes venons un seul coup.
Moi pas connaître si m'était rencontré avec tout le monde ça. C'est l'aime venir par rapport de président était mort. Président Jovenel, après ça, président ici a venu dire anti-libération pour un pays haïtien. Après ça, nous sommes juste venus parce que l'autre bois pas de bon pour nous.
D'accord.
L'autre bois pas de bon, nous avons petit monde ou presque au travail pour Caille seulement. Après ça, nous venons nous prendre route là. Et là, nous venons route là, nous causons avec tout le monde ça. Là, nous venons bas pour nous causons avec tout le monde ça. Nous ne connaissons pas tout le monde. Non, nous pas.
Ça veut dire nous chaque décider en famille ou en individu pour prendre route là. Et ensuite pendant sur route là, c'est là soit rencontrer avec tout l'autre monde qui sorti de différents côtés et puis nous tous venir en bas pour.
Oui, nous tous venir en bas.
Et vous dites faire 8 jours en bas pour.
Oui, on fait 8 jours. Mon mourir, mon qui fait petit en bas pour en poussière ça mourir.
Il y a des gens qui fait si mon en bas pour qui mourir.
En poussière.
Yo quitté 2 petits monde.
Oui.
Il y a 2 petits monde qui mourent en bas pour. Si monde qui mourent en bas pour, c'est maladie ou quoi?
En poussière,
en bas pour.
En bas pour. Même cette petite lampe paraît. Et puis, il n'y a pas de pousser. Je ne sais pas si la police fait. Ni qui voit le mystique encore. Il va prendre soin, il va tourner mystique encore. Et mon mystique prend soin. Après ça, après 2-3 jours, il venu retourner encore. On va traverser le droit. Et puis là, ça, il va traverser. Il va la guette de l'eau. Il va venir en haut.
Ça veut dire que pendant la fait bébé, en bas pour. Cette petite la sortie.
Mais il va pas pousser.
Mais il va pas pousser.
Il va tourner mystique encore pour mon mystique va le soin, il va prendre soin. C'est mon mystique qui a le prendre soin.
Il pas prendre soin ici.
Non, il va
il déplacer là le Mexique.
Oui.
Et puis là il retourne.
Elle retourne, il va comme ça passer après. Parce qu'il va tout.
Merci beaucoup. Merci.
We had a great week in Texas. Seeing everything that happened.
Yes.
We came back and we protested.
Yes.
And we're still protesting, hearing all the stories and everything that's going on. I hear the pain in your voice and you even sound different. So what's going on?
So, not only have I lost my voice through the protest that we hosted last week, Wednesday, I continue to read the stories. And I continue to feel the pain. And although I was not present, I hear of the women who were raped, pregnant women being raped.
God.
I've read stories of men who were afraid to speak up as the women were being raped and who were even willing to watch their very own wives berate and not say a word, afraid for their life. And although I am privileged, I live here in America. I have a 5-year-old son who is American. I think about what those children have experienced, the trauma, and how this generation is going to be able to somehow, some way, give them the hope that they have traveled and endured so much for. And so this show for me today is probably one of the most difficult that I have done, because it speaks to our plight as a people. And today, as I was reading an article that the Texas Tribune wrote, I read the story of the migrants in San Antonio who were at a bus stop. And while they were at the bus stop, a child who was walking into a store with their parents covered their nose at the Haitian migrants in a jest to say that they smell. And I remember growing up as a child in school, and they calling us Haitian booty scratchers. And I remember how many of us fought to gain our respect and fought to ensure that they did not just have the open door to do whatever and say whatever to us. And yet, and still, in 2021, we are back at square one. So yes, this has been a very difficult time for me personally. And I am working through those emotions. And even at our rally last week, I was extremely vocal about what I believe was a blatant disrespect and a betrayal of our trust as a people and as voters here in the United States.
Don't get me started on the voting.
By the administration.
In a matter of weeks, there was a man-made assassination of a sitting president that the international community couldn't give a damn about. Then a 7.2 earthquake, and then 15,000 at the border in Del Rio, Texas. The men and women and children who were there under the bridge just wanted fairness and opportunity. An opportunity here, if it exists, an opportunity in Haiti, if Haitians are allowed to resolve their own problems without the U.S. approval or involvement. To make matters worse, under a Democratic leadership, suddenly 15,000 Haitian migrants were swiftly removed from the Del Rio Bridge without any transparency, and for thousands without due process here in America. What happened in Del Rio, Texas is a result of years and decades of compounded effects internationally and domestically, contributing to the breakdown of Haitian institutions, infrastructure, and producing an economic depression. Today, we are here to make it clear to the Biden administration that you have failed and betrayed the trust of Haitian people. Yes. When you campaigned for the presidency, you promised a trusted leader. You promised us a friend, a president who would have a humane approach to immigration. In essence, you came to Little Haiti, got on your knees, and gave us a check. And we held it for safekeeping. September of 2021, with our brothers and sisters at the border, begging America to come in, our community went to cash and deposit the check. It bounced. It came back with insufficient funds. President Biden, today you have proven to be a betrayer of our trust. You betrayed the trust of the Haitian community. You betrayed us by continuing to use the use of Title 42 expulsions, a racist order from the Trump era that violates U.S. asylum laws. Despite our cries, our leaders cried out to you. We wrote letters from New York, Florida, Boston, everywhere. You turned a deaf ear. You did not hear us. Your administration carried out mass expulsions and expelled nearly 4,000 Haitian asylum seekers without due process. Biden, you betrayed us. You betrayed us by propping up Secretary Mayorkas to lie to the global community and tell them that Haiti is okay, that everything is all right, while you know very well that Haiti continually operates under a 40% budget deficit annually. It is plagued with gangs, insecurity, corruption, and extreme poverty. Yet and still, you took those that were seeking asylum and you packed them up like cargo and dropped them in Okap and Port-au-Prince. You betrayed us, Biden. Shame on him. Shame on you.
These are my takeaways from all that has been happening, and where I feel that we are as a people, we are at a crossroads.
Yes.
We are at a crossroads.
We are.
And how we approach this, the policies that we demand, we're not asking anymore.
No, we're not asking anymore. And you know what? You can't lie to us anymore.
Yes.
You've lied enough.
Yes.
We have taken it time and time again. For decades, we have been voting for the same politicians, and they lie to us over and over and over again. They tell us, oh, we have more work to do. We're going to finish it this next time. You've got to elect me. We are done.
Their time is up.
Their time is up.
And rightfully so.
Yes.
Rightfully so. Christine, you are running to become the first Democrat Haitian American member of Congress. What could have been done differently to avoid what we are seeing now?
We live in a district that has the highest Haitian population in the United States of America. We have a representative that could have put a policy in place, that could have introduced a bill specifically for Haitian migrants to offer us visas, to offer us a stipend, maybe a work program, something that was specifically made for Haitian migrants. We are not alone in this situation. The Cuban migrants have policies specifically for them. The Haitian migrants should have policies specifically for them.
Christine, we know that as a candidate, there are so many things that you have to ensure that you present on your platform.
Yes.
Because we are a diverse community. It is a diverse district. And although it is heavily populated with Haitians and Haitian Americans, we want to know, what role can Congress play during a difficult time like this in Haitian history?
Our number one goal should be economic equity. We need to raise this household median income. What our families are bringing in compared to what our families are putting out, it doesn't add up. We are living well above our means. And that's because why? We don't have a strong minimum wage, not even a minimum wage, a living wage. Our businesses are not being protected. Where are small business programs? Yes, during the pandemic, we had PPP and we had the EIDL. We had all these things. Let's keep those going. Let's keep our businesses thriving. Small businesses is what makes our district in particular thrive. And our minority businesses have been shutting down left and right. We have to protect our small businesses. We have to protect our families. Our parents need to make more so they can spend time at home, doing homework, having dinner, enjoying our lives. But it's hustle and bustle every day. I think the best thing that we can fight for right now is economic equity. That also involves canceling student debt. Do you know that canceling student debt would help increase it would help close the gap, the wealth gap between not only minorities, but also women? I mean, these are things that are no-brainers, right? But it's so hard to get it passed. Even when we have the majority, when the Democrats have the majority in the House, in the Senate, and we even hold the presidency.
Christine, why do you think with all these majority seats, it's still difficult for us to do what's right for the people?
So I say this often. Just because someone looks like you doesn't mean that they're fighting for you. And I don't mean that as in a resemblance. We may be all in the same party, but we have different priorities, right? Many of our representatives, many of our senators are fighting for corporate interests. Who is funding their campaigns? Who is keeping them in that seat? And so they're beholden to them. Yes, on paper, they're for the party, right? On paper, we look the same. No, but behind closed doors, we are not. And so it's very important. That's why I do not take any corporate money. I am only funded by the people. I want to only be indebted to the people. This is where you get this rift in the party, because there's a third party, and that is the corporations.
Christine, it was a pleasure having you here today. Yeah. Thank you so very much. What are your final words for our viewers?
My final words for our viewers are policy, policy, policy. We have over 60,000 Haitian migrants on their way right now to the Mexican border. The border in Del Rio, the border in Laredo, the border all throughout. They are on their way. We need a policy in place to receive our migrant brothers and sisters. And we need to make those demands clear and known to our representatives.
Christine, I am in full agreement that the pathway forward has to be policy driven, and we need to demand it.
Yes.
Thank you so much for being here. I really enjoyed not only our conversation today, but the conversations that we had throughout Texas, driving up and down, meeting with leaders, going through the press conferences. And I got to see you in action, feel your heart, and understand your passion. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you to Conversations, because I know it's not just you. There's a whole team. And I want to thank you for even opening up the conversation about the migrant crisis, for allowing me to step into your space and be on this platform to share my family story and to share my plans for what we can do for this community. Thank you so much. God bless you.
I receive that. I receive that. The conversation does not end here. Keep it going with friends and family. And if you don't agree, let's learn to agree to disagree. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and leave a comment. Until the next conversation, have a great day. This episode of Conversation was sponsored by the Haitian Diaspora Federation. Their mission is to inspire and empower people of Haitian heritage to improve their and Haiti's socio-economic conditions. This episode was also sponsored by DECO International Security Corporation. Their mission is to enhance your success by providing the highest standard in security services.
Hi, my name is Naomi Blemur, author, coach, and businesswoman. I am here in our magnificent space, Balancing Life workspace. Today is just an amazing day for us as an organization, for our vision and the trajectory of our future. Balancing Life Workspace is a space designed with you in mind. We've created a space where you can connect, create, and cultivate. It is an affordable workspace for the freelancer, for the independent contractor, for the startup, or for the person who's looking to downsize. Wherever you are in your vision, wherever you are in your entrepreneurship, come check us out and see whether or not our space can provide services to you. Thank you.
Schedule your private tour for North Miami's very first co-working space today. We are located at 685 Northeast 126th Street on the corner of 126th and 7th Ave, just minutes from City Hall. For plans and pricing, visit our site at www.blworkspaces.com or call us Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. through 6 p.m. at 305-735-2105. Until then, have a balanced day.